Folks, we are going to have a conversation about private money. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know that there were two unique times in my 20-year career where I raised millions of dollars in private money. We will talk about those, but let's first welcome Chad Carson, Coach Carson, to the show. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Michael. Great to be back.
Yeah, when we talk private money, um, it's one of those topics that like gets a lot of attention. A lot of people are like, that's the reason I can't do it because nobody I know has money. And usually that's not true if you really kind of get into it, but we'll talk about it. So, Chad, when you talk about private money, what are you thinking about? Where should we go in this conversation?
Well, I'll briefly tell my story. Like when I first started investing, I didn't have the W-2 job. I didn't have the income. I didn't have the credit to go get a loan. So private money was actually, and also seller financing, were my entryway into real estate investing. And I was fortunate enough to have like a network. I got early on, I established a network of other investors in the upstate of South Carolina. I went to meetups. I talked to people. I went to Clemson University where I went to school and met a couple of professors there in the business department. But the point is, like, I just started meeting people, and I was a college student, so I was want to learn. I want to talk to people, and as I talked to people, I identified the people who seemed to be knowing what they were doing, and that led to me eventually talking to them and saying, "Hey, I'm finding pretty good deals here. If I found a good deal, like, could you put up the money somehow?" And I didn't know how, I didn't know the mechanics, I didn't know how that would work, but it ultimately led to first being partners with them on one deal, with one particular professor. But then we sort of transitioned to a much simpler scenario where he was just my bank. I
Hmm.
was the entrepreneur who found the deals. And it was so simple. And today is still very simple that you find one person, one deal. And in my case, it were like $200,000 chunks, 150,000, 300,000. So I would find one person who had either their own money, and these were typically more experienced investors, or they had a retirement account and they self-directed it, put it with a custodian who could loan me the money. And so that was, I would say, 75% of my deals have been done with some sort of individual who loaned me the money. So that's kind of my background with it.
Yeah, I'll kind of share. I've done private money two different times. The first time was kind of 2010, 11, 12. I was actually paying 10 and 12% interest. So I was paying double digit interest only to make the payments easy. And I was borrowing the entire purchase price,
Me too.
right? So
Yeah.
it was all that. I was in that case funding the repairs or make readies, but I was borrowing the whole thing. And I was doing Burr before it was a thing. So I would buy a junker, I'd fix it up, refi with more permanent debt, cast them out, and everybody was happy. So that worked, I don't know, for 3 or 4 years. That's all I did. And I was recycling capital just like a machine. And then, obviously the market changes. That doesn't work. The deals aren't quite as ripe. So 12% interest doesn't work for me. So we did something else. And then we fast forward to 2018. I retire now. I no longer have this six-figure job. I'm no longer bankable in the eyes of, big banks. And I realized that the market is still hot for flipping. And I never flipped before, right? I was always buy and hold. So in 2018, I established a private money where I have my investors who are my partners. They're still debt, right? I never had a JV, but this is how I structured the note. I paid 6% interest only, and I gave them 20% of the profit on the exit because these were all going to be flips. And um, again, I borrowed the entire purchase price and I funded the make ready. So again, this is a way for me to borrow millions and millions of dollars. It was a way for me to keep 5, 6, 7 projects going at the same time. All of my investors, when you take the annualized return on their money, were over 20%. When you annualized my make ready money, I was over 100%. It was just those were kind of the profits. And I was able to do 54 or 55 of these in about a 2.5 year period. So private money is out there. And you can structure private money any way you want. In 2010, happy to pay 12%. 2018, not so much. Much lower interest rate, gave some of the equity. There's just lots of way. Private money is so flexible, Chad.
Super flexible. And I think, I know you've been getting a lot of these comments on YouTube about frustration with the market, 8% interest rates on 30-year mortgages, 7.5% interest rates. How do we can't make rentals work anymore. And like, I get the frustration. Like that make the math, the way people were doing it, getting it 20% down, getting a traditional mortgage just doesn't seem to make sense in most markets and most deals. So
Mhm.
I think private money, because of its flexibility, is one of those tools in my toolbox that I'm
Yeah.
recommending pull back out. Because I mean, just let's do some basic math. Like I look at a lot of properties that are like in the $300,000 range. So if you know, back when the interest rates were 4%, you put 20% down, get a $240,000 loan, and maybe your 30-year mortgage is like $1,150 or so, somewhere in there. And so
Sure.
let's say that worked. Let's say you had a $2,000 rental that worked for you, right? Well,
Good.
today you buy a property at 300,000, put 20% down, $240,000 loan at 8% for 30 years is like 1,700, $1,800. You know,
Yeah.
like so that's the math
Yeah.
that everybody is worried about it. But what I would put forward is the way people I know who are doing deals now, they're doing a couple things. They're changing their financing strategy. They're also trying to buy properties a little bit at lower values. You've been talking
Mhm.
about buy great deals, right?
Mhm.
So let's say you buy that $300,000 property for $240,000 instead. You get a 20% discount. You'd have to hunt, you got to look for a lot of deals, but that's entirely possible if you
Mhm.
really search hard. And then
For
you
sure.
put, let's say you put $40,000 down, which is not unreasonable in most cases, and you get a $200,000 private loan at 6%. So you
Yeah.
borrow $200,000 at 6%. That's $1,000 interest only payment. Yes, you're paying interest only. You got to figure out
Mhm.
some way to eventually pay that loan off. But the point is, like, if it worked a few years ago with a 4% 30-year mortgage at $1,150, and you can figure out a way to buy it at a little bit below value and get an interest only loan from a private lender at 6%, that's in the same ballpark as the payment you were making on a loan a few years ago, and you're able to stay in the game. You're able to buy these deals that nobody else is able to buy. So that's just one example that's been on my
Yeah.
mind of like the kind of thinking you have to do to work, instead of saying I can't do deals, to say how can I do deals using the
Yeah.
tools I have in my toolbox.
Yeah. This is why I love our conversation. You have a playlist on my channel. It's just called Coach Carson. And we talk about creative financing. This is your mindset is the thing. If you believe it's not possible, it's not. If you believe it is possible, it is. And the other thing I would like to say nowadays is real estate investing is always hard. It's just a different kind of hard. You guys may not realize this, but 2020 and 2021, I wrote the most offers I've ever had and gotten two counters. No deals. No, I buy out of the MLS. It's one of the things that I do. No deals for 2.5 years. Everything I got was off market or through my network. It's okay. Now I'm writing deals and now I'm getting counters. It's just, it changes. Believe in yourself. Understand it's possible. I found two deals last year, same time, 30% off list price. They were ugly properties. They didn't look good. The pictures were horrible. They were trying to be sold in November and December. They wanted to be done by the end of the year. Guess what? Motivated sellers, 30% off, you know, flipped one in January, the other one in March, made 90 grand. It's possible. You just got to do the work. It's never easy.
Yeah, I love that attitude too, because I think, again, people on the internet, it's easy to say this is easy, this is passive, and eventually, like right now in my life, I'm spending two
Yeah.
hours per week on my real estate, so it is passive now. But
Yeah.
man, when you're climbing the mountain, when you're getting up there, when you're making offers, like it's not, there's some dues you have to pay. So I'm really glad you're also saying that it's not easy on the front end. But more than anything, like I think people got to realize that it's possible, first of all, and then
Yeah.
you got to be creative. Like you cannot just do these little cookie cutter. Like if you were a carpenter, if you only used a hammer and you went
Yeah.
around trying to fix a house with a hammer, like that's ridiculous. Like we real estate investors have to be creative. We got to think outside the box. We got to study people like Michael and me and other people who are doing deals. Like you got to, this is why you listen to these YouTube videos, is to get
Mhm.
ideas and be creative and then go apply those ideas. So I think
Yeah.
that creativity is often missed, and as an entrepreneur and as an investor, is that's one of our secret superpowers. Like the people who sit on the sidelines are like moping about it and complaining, and they're very rigid in their mindset, whereas we are like can do people. We're like, if somebody else says we can't do it, we're like, okay, well, you can't do it that way.
I'll show
What's
you.
another way? What's another way I could do it? I love when people challenge me. I'm like, no, really, like let me show you how it's done. Let's go.
Yeah. At the end of the day, folks, real estate investing is never easy. Uh, you believe what you want to believe. I'm not in the convincing business. I have evidence. I have a track record. I have a history. Right. It's all out there for you. But Coach, where can people find you?
Well, I wrote a book called The Small Mighty Real Estate Investor. Check that out. You go to Amazon, anything Bigger Pockets is out there. And then if you're on YouTube, search Coach Carson. Really, any social media, you'll find me out there. I would love to connect with you.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you. Talk next week.
Yeah, see you soon.